One of the things we must understand is that production is the creation of goods and services. Thus, operations management is the set of activities creating some form of variable in the form of goods and services by transforming inputs into some form of outputs. When we look at these productions, we organize to produce goods and services. Some of the essential functions that we look at: marketing, because marketing helps us generate demand; production and operations, because that is what creates the products; finance and accounting, tracks how well the organization is doing, pays the bills, and collects the money. When we look at the supply chain, which is a portion of operations management, we identify that it can be a global network of organizations and activities that supply a firm with goods and services. Members of the supply chain collaborate with each other to achieve high levels of customer satisfaction, efficiency, and competitive advantage. So why are you studying operations management? Well, operations management is one of the three major functions of any organization. We want to study how people organize themselves for productive enterprises. We also want and need to know how goods and services are produced. We want to understand what operations managers do. And operations management is such a costly part of an organization that it is important for us to understand it, learn it, and become highly familiar with it. So what do operations managers actually do? Well, we studied previously in management that management has four functions: planning, organizing, leading, and controlling. Operations management is similar. The basic management functions for operations managers include planning, organizing. Now we insert the word staffing into the middle, and then leading and controlling. So as you can see, we have the four functions of management, but we included the function of staffing. You will be making strategic decisions as operations managers. It is important that you understand what they are. There are 10 strategic decisions that we will be speaking about. First one is design of goods and services. The second is managing quality. The third is process and capacity strategy. The fourth, location strategy. The fifth is layout strategy. The sixth is human resources and job design. The seventh, supply chain management. 8 is inventory management. 9 is scheduling. And 10 is maintenance. Let us look at design of goods and services. It defines what is required of the operation. Product design determines the quality, sustainability, and human resources needed in order to produce these goods and services. Managing quality it determines the customer's quality and expectations. It is important that you inherently know what level of quality your customer needs, wants, and desires. It establishes policies and procedures to identify and achieve the quality that they desire, they need, and you can afford and want to push forth. Let's talk about process capacity design. Well, how good is the goods and services that you are producing? You as managers are committed to specific technology, quality, resources, and investments in designing and pushing through the outputs. The fourth, of course, we speak about is location strategy. As in all real estate acquisitions and sales, location, location, location is very important. You have to consider when you identify the location you want to place your business in is the nearness to your customers, to your suppliers, and talent. It's important to understand about the suppliers because when you are producing an item, do you want to have just-in-time inventory or do you want to have stock capability? Stock costs more. Just-in-time, though, requires you to place your business in the correct location so you have speedy access to those supplies. We then go into talent. It is important that you look at the human resources talent that is in the location area. You also have to consider the cost of being in that specific area, the infrastructures that are available. Is there high-speed internet resources? Do they have valuable and important road networks so that you can access and they can access you, and at the same time you can distribute the products that you create? You have to have the logistics that are present in those areas. And of course, is the government friendly towards business? Or do they have imposing laws that restrict your ability to navigate the environment? The layout strategy. It integrates capacity that is needed. You have to understand the demand that your customers have, what you're capable of producing, but also what capacities that you have. It also takes into consideration personnel levels, quantity of people that you're hiring, and also the amount of knowledge that they have, requiring them to you either hire more people or hire different style of people, technology, and of course, inventory. In the layout strategy, we also determine the efficient flow of the materials, the people, and information that is needed to produce and to sell. The sixth factor that we look at in the strategic decisions is the human resources and job designs. It is important to understand that the human resource factor is very, very critical. You not only have to do the proper job design so that you can identify what type of people you're looking for. You just don't do it at a whim. You have to program it. You look at recruits. How do you motivate employees? How do you retain the personnel that you currently have, that you want to retain? And of course, is there in that area the required talent, and can you attract that required talent and skills? Human resources is an integral part and is a very expensive part of the total systems design. So it is important that you pay attention to it and you take it into consideration. Supply chain management. It integrates supply chain into the firm's strategy. It cannot be a stovepipe operation. It has to be an integrated, almost ERP system. ERP stands for Enterprise Resource Planning or Programming. Determine what is to be purchased, from whom, and under what conditions. You're also going to notice that sole source purchases, though may be cheaper in the short term, it requires you to do an analysis of the amount of risk that you're taking when you're buying from single source locations. Why? Because of the risks involved in those purchases. If that organization ends up having some form of incident whereby they cannot deliver the purchased goods that you need in order to transform those goods into a proper good that you are now selling, then you are caught in the bind. And you don't want that. Consequently, risk mitigation is an important part of the supply chain management. The eighth factor that we look at in strategic decisions is inventory management. Inventory ordering and holding decisions is an important and critical action in this process. There must be good calculations in order to be able to perform this function. You have to know when is your reorder point. You need to know at what point is your stock out system, your stock out leverage. You are optimizing and considering customer satisfaction during this process. If you're doing just-in-time inventory, you must ensure that your customers have the correct pieces of equipment that they desire at the right time. Consequently, you have to manage your inventory to ensure that this happens. At the same time, you have to understand the supplier capabilities. Can the suppliers provide you with the items or stuff that you need in order to continue with the manufacturing process. And of course, production schedules. Scheduling, which is the ninth segment of strategic decisions, is a critical function of management in itself. You will be doing this on a continuous basis. You will determine and implement intermediate and short-term schedules as needed, especially if you have a production line, and even if you have services, you still do this. You will utilize personnel and facilities while meeting your customer demands, taking into consideration downtime. Downtime is not a good thing because you're not producing. It's costing you to do idle. Last one is called maintenance. Consider the capacity of the facility itself, the production demand, and the personnel. Maintain a reliable and stable process. You do not want chaos in the process itself. Now let us look at where the operation management jobs are. They are in technology, in the methods side of the technology, facilities and space utilization, strategic issues, response time, people, team development, customer service, quality, cost reduction, inventory reduction, and productivity improvement. There are a few certifications that go along with operations management, which I encourage you in your later portions through the MBA program that you attempt these. One is the Association for Operations Management, also known as APICS, APICS. Another one is American Society for Quality, or ASQ. Institute for Supply Management, ISM. The Project Management Institute, PMI. That's the one that is most famous. The Council of Supply Chain Management Professionals, and there's the Charter Institute of Procurement and Supply itself, CIPS. So you can understand why all of a sudden we have operations management. You have to know the heritage of operations management because it always did not exist. Part of it started back in 1776 as we grew into a country. At that point, we understood the concept of division of labor through Adam Smith. If you recall, Adam Smith wrote The Wealth of Nations. Also in 1852, Charles Babbage had something to do with the division of labor within the United States to help in improving such aspects. Standardized parts was developed by Whitney in the 1800s. If you recall, Whitney was involved in the grain sector. So he standardized parts to ensure that there was continuous availability and it was easy to plug and play. Scientific management, that is the crescendo of in the olden times of how to look at the way people do things. And that was done by Frederick W. Taylor. It started off in the olden times in 1881. Now, Ford and Sorensen in around 1913 coordinated what we know now as the assembly line. In fact, Ford is known to have pioneered the concept of the assembly line as the Model T Ford was being pushed out for the consumers. Now, you probably know this famous chart is known as the Gantt chart. Well, it was created by Gantt in 1916. And then what we like to see quite a bit is motion study, especially time motion study. This was by Franklin and Gilbreth that was conducted in the 1922s. They were the pioneers of time motion studies. Do we continue doing that? Yes, we do. In fact, we still do Gantt charts. We still appreciate the scientific movement, though Frederick W. Taylor ended up getting a bad rap for the scientific movement itself, scientific management. It was too cold. It didn't realize the potentials of the people. So we came up with the theory X and theory Y that were diametrically opposed concepts, and on and on and on. So he got a bad rap because he was too cold. But the reality of the show, we look at is the scientific management showed that there is a specific set of circumstances and time management that allows you to program in a business. We also have quality control. Here we have individuals like Schuhart, 1924, and of course, Deming. We know him as the Deming Award. We also have the Baldrige Award for the government side of the house. But Deming is the most renowned and through the 1950s. Now, the computer helped operations management quite a bit. All right, so you're looking at the development of computers and how it came about. So the computers in itself assisted operations management because of systematizing the processes. We then go into CPM and PERT diagramming. This was developed in DuPont in 1957, of course, by the Navy, through the Navy in 1958. CPM is through DuPont, and PERT was used mainly by the Navy. The material requirements planning, was another function that was part of the heritage of operations management, because now you understood the reason why, in order to produce a widget, an end product, you needed to go ahead and have a series of material requirements and when to order them. And did they arrive at the same time, or do you need them at separate stages? So you had the timing to take into effect. On or about 1970s, we had a concept, because of the advent of computers and improved software, of computer-aided design, also known as CAD. CAD greatly enhanced the engineering of various products and helped us understand, if we change a product here or change a product there, what it would do to the overall performance of that product. Then we have flexible manufacturing systems introduced in the 1975s. Baldrige Quality Awards, as I explained, was mainly the government, but we still have, it's still out there, was introduced in the 1980s. Then there's computer integrated manufacturing in the 90s, globalization of 1992, and of course the internet exploded back in 1995. It doesn't stop there. We have continuous evolution of how things are getting done, where we now have connectivity through the internet in all parts of the world. And because of the support systems that allow products to be delivered from one place to the other, like through avionics, companies like UPS, they deliver products on a timely basis and they have routine schedules. So you can predict and plan for your products to be delivered to your location for production. Let me continue going of what are some of the contributions for industrial engineering or industrial, basically it's contribution, but in the industrial psychology, industrial engineering, what are we looking for in operations management? Because those are the two main functions that scientifically provide towards operations management. So we have statistics. We all know that we're going to be studying statistics. If you haven't done so already, it's part of the program. You have to know statistics, the mean, the method, the mode, the standard deviation, standard error, the means, alpha, betas, so on and so forth. T-testing, you name it, all the wonderful words. But you have to know those, because if you don't, then you cannot do proper analysis and provide the analytics needed in order to make proper decisions in operations management. So through the industrial engineering portion of it, creates designs, but then you also have to know how to go ahead and put those designs into operations. You then have to look at management and how management is done. Though people are needed, when you're in there's a difference between a service management and when you're looking at creating products or assembly line products, you treat the situation differently. So you have to manage not only your time, but also your methodology of how you're doing things, especially with employees. Economics. Do people have the discretionary income available in order to go ahead and sell the products that, for you to be able to sell the products to them that you're desirous of selling? You have got to do a market analysis for this. You have to look to see whether or not you have price flexibility and price structures that are necessary for your customers to go ahead and purchase your product. A lot of time and effort, and we are focusing quite a bit nowadays into the physical sciences, especially the math, in the hardcore science, physics, chemistry, biologies, etc. How is all this into operations management? Well, the biological aspect of it is indeed, we're looking at DNA, how to create new medical products. There's a lot of operations management in the creation of medical products out there. We also have information technology, which is one of the main areas where operations management focuses quite a bit, aside from the fact that also project management is there. Project management is a part of or a subset of operations management for those that are interested in operations in project management. The key to good operations management is the productivity challenge. So I challenge all in this class to focus your attention on how to improve productivity, how to be more efficient, how to go ahead and be more productive. So productivity is the ratio of outputs, whatever they are, it could be goods or it could be services, divided by the inputs. These are resources such as labor and capital. The objective is to improve the productivity. You have to understand, special note, production is a measure of output only and not a measure of efficiency. When we look at the economic system, what are we looking at? Well, this is very simple, and it's not, you may think that the terminology is complex, but it's not. This is basically inputs, items such as labor, capital, and management. You then insert it or change it into something, which is called the transformation portions of it. Things like, a good example would be the U.S. economic system transforms input to outputs at about an annual 2.5% increase in productivity per year, approximately. The productivity increase is the result of a mix of capital, which is around 38% of 2.5%, labor, 10% of the 2.5%, and management, 52% of the 2.5%. From when you do all this and put it together and you transform it, these inputs, you now have what's called an output, and these outputs are your goods and services. From your goods and services, you have a feedback loop because your customers are going to use the services and goods. They're going to tell you whether they like it or not. And that could be by returning the product or actually giving you, back your feedback when you do that, the famous survey. Now, when you look at productivity, you're going to use the productivity or the units that you produce divided by the inputs that are used. This is a key factor in identifying what you're doing. I want you to remember that, so I'll say it again. Productivity is units produced divided by input used. Now, the units produced is easy to identify. The input used is not. What productivity does is measures process improvements, represents output relative to input, and only through the productivity increases can your standard of living improve. So let's look at this productivity calculation. You can have productivity calculations for labor. That's called labor productivity. And how do we do this? Well, your productivity for labor productivity equals the units that you produced, easy to identify, divided by the number of labor hours used to produce those units. So let us assume that you produced 1,000 units for that period of time. Well, how many labor hours did you use for that period of time? 250. So if you divide 1,000 by 250, you have 4 units per labor hour. What does that mean? Right? Every labor hour that you invest, you are getting 4 units out of it. Does that tell you anything? When you look at it by itself, it does not. You have to compare it to something. So it's either a continuous review of your productivity, or you compare it to other benchmarks, which could mean other companies. This one resource input, which is labor, It's very important you understand this because this portion is going to, you're going to be doing this within the course. This one resource input is called single factor productivity. Consequently, for single factor productivity, you will have only one denominator. The units produced is the numerator. The labor hours used is the single factor productivity, and it is the denominator. Now, you're also going to be asked to do the multi-factor productivity. Well, it's obvious. The multi-factor productivity is the output, easy to identify, divided by the various factors that influence the productivity of that output. This is where it gets a little tricky. Here you have items like labor, material, the amount of energy or watts that you use in order to produce this, capital, and miscellaneous. Now, you could also have the amount of energy cost. Remember, try not to mix dollars or money itself with other items that are not of same relative quantity. Why? Because then it becomes meaningless. Also known as total factor productivity is this multi-factor productivity. But for purposes of this course, let us just leave it at multi-factor productivity. Outputs and inputs are all usually expressed in dollars. So your labor would not be in units, it'd be in labor cost, hours. Materials would not be in material units, but in cost. Your energy would not be in watts or kilowatts, it'd be in dollars. The same thing for the capital and any other extraneous items like miscellaneous. Some of the things that you have to take into consideration that may be a problem is the measurement problem. One of the things we look at is quality. Quality may change while the quantity of inputs and outputs remain constant. You have to ask yourself, why is it changing? Is something different? Did we do a design problem? One of the things that I have found that we provide different levels of quality services, especially in the environment that I'm dealing with this, which is the financial services. Being the chairman of the board of a credit union, I'm always looking to provide the best quality for our members, our patrons, our customers. It is hard to go ahead and have consistent 100% perfect quality all the time because we are dealing with people. 60% of the impact my credit union provides to our customers is through people. Consequently, depending on the emotional ties, how they feel that day, is the quality that comes out. But we attempt at the highest level and at the lowest level to provide the best quality service possible to our members because we want them coming back. Now, another concept to look at in measurement problems is the external elements. These may be causing an increase or decrease in productivity, such as weather, inclement weather itself. You reduce productivity if you have a hurricane here in South Florida because everything's shut down. You then lose electricity or the energy for quite a bit of time. This past hurricane that we had here in South Florida, we lost the electricity for a period of almost a week. Constantly when we were running on generator power, then we had to get the gasoline, and it became challenges. But we provided the services needed to our customers to be able to take out the money because they needed the money to fix what their issues caused by the hurricane. Precise units of measure may be lacking. This is where you must ensure that everything you do is systematized and very accurate. That's why quantitative analysis is part of your decision-making process in operations management. Now let's look at productivity variables. Approximately 10% increase annually is your labor. It contributes to about 10% of the annual increase. Capital contributes about 38% of the annual increases to productivity variables. Management contributes about 52% of the annual increase. Consequently, your focus should be on all three, not necessarily one over the other, even though management provides 52% of the annual increase. If you fail to take advantage of the labor and provide them with the necessary incentives, you could be losing that extra 10% which your opponents or your competition uses. The same thing with capital. Now, there's some things we can talk about regarding key variables for improved labor productivity. These include the basic education that is appropriate for your labor force. In the olden days, and I'm talking here prior to 1950s, it was encouraged to have a high school diploma, but you really didn't need it. Now, it is encouraged to have a bachelor's degree, and we encourage even deeply to have a master's degree so that you can get a greater foundation and you become more marketable. You can also improve your upward mobility. There's also the diet of the labor force. We're looking for health issues all the time. Why? Because it hits you on the workers' compensation part of the issue. As you get into accidents, a lot of issues occur. So we're looking at the diet of the workforce because we want you to remain healthy. We also don't want you to take that many sick days. Social overhead that makes labor available. These are challenges that are maintaining and enhancing skills in the midst of the rapidly changing technology and knowledge that is out there, especially with the PDAs. We now have, the iPhone, the Samsung. We use those, and these are considered social overheads. We want you to interact with it, but at the same time, it has to be a methods for the enterprise to use in order to achieve an advantage. And we'll be talking about key success factors and market advantages very quickly from here. When we look at management, which makes up approximately 58% of the increases, we ensure that labor and capital are effectively used to create productivity. That's your job. That's your function. That's why you're studying operations management. You're using the applied or theoretical knowledge that we're providing you today, applying such knowledge and applying such technologies in order to achieve those improvements that are needed in your organization. We are creating knowledge societies. These are the labor section, which migrated from manual work to technical information processing tasks. But at the same time, you yourselves are going to be segmenting into knowledge societies. More effective use of technology, knowledge, and capital is an important part of being an effective operations manager. Now, when we look at productivity in the service sector, there are improvements that are difficult to identify, but you must identify them. Service sectors are typically labor intensive. That is true. It frequently focuses on unique individual attributes or desires. Often it's an intellectual task performed by professionals. It's often difficult to mechanize and automate, and often difficult to evaluate for quality. But it doesn't say impossible. Consequently, the service sector is an important area where we need to focus our attention to in operations management, especially when we want to quantify. One of the key examples, as you look through your textbook, you will see that it's Taco Bell. Most of us have eaten at Taco Bell. We identified some improvements. Right? They revised their menu. They designed meals for easy preparation. Shifted from preparation to suppliers. They have an efficient layout and automation. They train their employees well, and they empower their employees. They also have new water and energy saving grills. The results of all these improvements is preparation time for Taco Bell was cut by 8 seconds. In the fast food industry, that's quite a bit. Management span of control increased from 5 to 30. In-store labor cut by 15 hours a day. That's a lot of money savings right there. Floor space was reduced by more than 50%. Stores average 164 seconds per customer from drive up to pull out. This is an important aspect of that I'm saying here because you're going to learn that. That's the line timing and the cues. This for Taco Bell and for McDonald's, Burger King, all the ones that have drive-thrus is an important aspect to include Starbucks that just in the past years just recently started with the drive-thrus. Water and energy saving grills conserve 300 million gallons of water and 200 million kilowatt hours of electricity each year. Translates to dollar savings. And green. Inspired cooking methods saves about 5,800 restaurants $17 million per year. Win-win situation just on making those analysis and improvements. Now, there are some current challenges in operations management. We're looking at globalization, customs from different people. That is why when we look at organizational behavior portion throughout the world, globalization is an important instrument to understand in order to bring it into focus for operations managers. Operation managing in one country may be different than that of the United States. It all depends on the customs, courtesies, and methods that are used in those countries. Supply chain partnering is another. Sustainability, very important aspect worldwide. Rapid product development. But be cautious about rapid product development, as we found out through the iPhone. When they introduced the iPhone 10, it was done at such an accelerated pace that many customers that would have normally bought it did not buy it because they still liked the previous iPhone iteration that they had. Consequently, the improvements that were made were not of such nature that, I don't want to say the word force, but that induced them to go ahead and purchase the new phone. Consequently, they had to slow down in the amount that they were producing so that demand was balanced out with production. Mass customization is another challenge in OM because different countries like different things. So if you create one cookie cutter for the world, if it is something that is generic in nature, people don't know any better, then fine, you probably can get away with it. But if people know that there are little differences and nuances that they may not like only because it's not part of that culture, then you may have a problem with mass customization. And then, of course, lean operations is very hard in some countries, depending on the government. That's why you create, you do a marketing analysis, what's called a pestle analysis. You won't be studying that in this course. You'll be studying it in your marketing course. But you'll understand, and I want to introduce that topic to you. You're going to know about SWOT analysis and pestle analysis, and we'll go into that a little bit under strategy, which is coming up soon. But lean operations is an important aspect of the entire concept because you're trying to be as lean as possible to make the highest profit available, but producing the greatest number of outputs that are the highest quality. The next topic that we're going to be discussing is operations strategy in a global environment. And this one hits the last two of your learning objectives for this particular week. Why would any company want to globalize from an operations management perspective? Well, it improves the supply chain because you have multiple sources of the supply itself. Remember that I had talked to you about risk. Well, it's important that you understand that if you have an improved supply chain that is outside of just one area, even though you may have a hurricane pass in one area, you still have your supply chain being able to be providing or supplying you from another segment of the world. It reduces cost and exchange rate risks. Now, there's a positive and negative to the exchange rate, but if you know how to use it and you hire people that are savvy on how to promote or do your correct exchange rates, then you hold the money until the exchange rate is correct, and then you switch it over to the dollar if you're in this country, or to any of the other currencies that you would like to have. Improve operations based on what we just talked about in operations management. Important to understand your market and also the markets that surround your market. Because remember, your market is a small part of the universe. Consequently, if you look at Porter's 5 forces model, you'll understand that, and we'll go over that. You'll understand that it's important to understand that just improving products and understanding your market are key factors that play for that, and then attract and retain global talent. If you go global, you have capabilities of attracting talent that you may not have here in your local environment. So you have to pay attention to locating the facilities, as we previously mentioned, as close as possible to your unique resources. In some cases, for example, auto design, sometimes they move to California. Why? Because that's where some of the best designers for automobiles are. Athletic shoe production in China because it's less costly. Perfume manufacturing in France because that's where the expertise is at. And you want that name, Paris, attached to your perfume. Reducing costs. There are risks involved with the currency exchange rates. As you travel, you'll understand that you go from one country from one currency country to another. So if you're going from the United States to your Eurozone, you're changing dollars to euro. It could be anywhere from $1.18 a euro, correction, $1 could get you maybe 86 euro, 0.86 of a euro. So your value of purchasing power decreases when you go from one place to the other, or increases when you go from one. It all depends on the currency exchange. Reduce direct and indirect cost. That is an important part of your operations. You have to conduct analysis to reduce your indirect and direct costs all the time. You have to be smarter, leaner, and more productive than your opponents. When we look at globalization, we also look at trade agreements, such as NAFTA. Right? You also look at the World Trade Organization. They help in providing loans, etc. North American Free Trade Agreement, NAFTA, APEC, SEATO, SEATO, Mercosur, right, and CAFTA, and of course the European Union. But we're having changes to this now. The United States, under the present administration, is now looking more into trade agreements to have a more balanced approach, favorable to that of the United States, as all the other countries are doing the same. So European unions have had one country already look to depart. That's the UK, United Kingdom. They voted to go ahead and exit the European Union. And at first it was a catastrophic event, so on and so forth. But now they realize they're still partners in the Eurozone. It's just they will not be using the euro, and they'll continue using the pound, and they will not be hampered in the restrictive aspect of trade in the Eurozone. When we look at improving operations, we understand differences between how businesses are handled in other countries. Japanese is inventory management. So if you read the Wall Street Journal 2 days ago, you will understand that the Japanese had to admit that they actually are becoming more lackadaisical in quality and inventory management. In the old days, they were known as the highest. When you bought a Japanese car, you were buying quality. Nowadays, we're finding that they were taking some shortcuts in the latter parts of this century. The Germans itself are more into robots, into machination. So you're looking at more systems, more actual machine-oriented perfection through that. And then the Scandinavians are more into ergonomics, right? Which one of the reasons why you have IKEA being one of the largest furniture manufacturers in the world, but they're very much into ergonomics. International operations can improve response time and customer service. So when you're in operations management, you're focusing a lot into international operations. How do you move people from one region to another? You have to ensure, remember, your human resource capital is one of your most costly portions of it. So when you're transferring people from one area of the world to another, you also have to make sure that they are compatible for that area. So you're going to ensure that you do proper analysis of your personnel. You may want to use some of Hofstede's systems to see if they are compatible or not, and then from there you move on and see if that's just with the human resource capital. You also have to look at whether or not your operations is designed to improve operations in that country. There are certain laws, rules, regulations that may prohibit you from changing the operational methods of that. So you have to pay attention to the political and or legal aspect in the country. And of course, you want to improve response time. That's always one of your main issues. And you always want to improve customer service. How you do it is what makes you a good or a great operations manager. Understanding the market. It is important that you're not necessarily you, but that your marketing experts are conducting appropriate level of market analysis. You're interacting with foreign customers, foreign suppliers. Competition can lead to new opportunities available to your organization, such as cell phone designs moved from Europe to Japan. Better ergonomics. Extend the product life cycle of your product so that it doesn't have to continuously do turnover and you don't have to reinvent the wheel all the time. Save money that way. But it's important that you improve the product so you remain open to free flow of ideas, such as Toyota and BMW managing joint research and development to reduce risk, improve state-of-the-art designs, and lower costs. Samsung and Bosch jointly produce batteries. So as you can see, it's partnership in research and development in a global perspective that allows improvements in the strategy portion of the organization. In attracting and retaining global talent, we try to go ahead and offer better employment opportunities to people, better growth and opportunities, and insulation against unemployment. We relocate unneeded personnel to more prosperous locations, but make sure that they're compatible. So you want to try to start looking at researching Hofstede's. Look it up on the internet. Even though you're going to be doing that in the organizational behavior courses that you're going to be taking later on, or you've already taken, one of the two. But look up that name, Hofstede. It's very important when you're looking at globalization. Cultural and ethical issues, which is part of what I just talked about. It's important for you to understand each country has social and cultural behaviors that are different than that of the United States. In fact, different all over. South America's culture is a lot different than that of the United States, which is a lot different than that of Germany. But even though we're a little compatible, we're slightly more compatible with the German aspect of it. Italians are more into the development of beauty, concepts, etc. So you got to look at where you're getting your talent from and what talent do you actually need. International laws, agreement, code of conduct for ethical behaviors are different in different countries. Mobility of capital, information, goods, and people. You have to understand how to do it and how to do it appropriately and least cost method. When you're moving to another country, operations into a country or moving your headquarters into another country, companies want to look at and you're trying to think through the national literacy rate. Where do you get all this information, by the way? Well, I'm going to give you a hint. The United States government, Central Intelligence Agency, publishes on an annual basis the CIA Fact Book. CIA Fact, F-A-C-T, book. You can Google it, get it. It is free. It tells you a wealth and plethora of information. All of this, most of the stuff that you need is in there. It includes national literacy rate. It includes technology exchange or technology levels. It includes political stability, products, liability laws. That it doesn't produce. What it does do, it tells you how to get to places that gives you the information. Any export restrictions, if any, that you can probably get from the Department of State. Variations in language, that does. Work ethics, tax rates, inflation rates, availability of raw material, interest rates, the population, transportation infrastructure, very important, and that is covered. The population and transportation infrastructure is covered in the Sierra World Factbook, and communication system. So as you can see, one source can give you a plethora of information, and it's updated quarterly by experts in the field. Developing missions and strategy, which is a key component. I highly recommend you pay attention to this section because you're going to be dealing with it in the various deliverables. A mission is a statement that tells an organization where it is going. A strategy tells the organization how to get there. A mission is about the now. A strategy or a vision is about the future. Missions is where the organization is going, organization's purpose for being. It answers the question of what do we contribute to society? What are you doing? What are you making? It provides boundaries and focus. For example, Merck's mission statement is the mission of Merck. In case you don't know what Merck is a pharmaceutical company. The mission of Merck is to provide society with superior products and services, innovation, and solution that improve the quality of life and satisfy customer needs, to provide employees with meaningful work and advancement opportunities, and investors with superior rate of return. Very beautiful and very, very moving mission statement. PepsiCo, also known as Pepsi, our mission is to be the world's premier consumer product company focused on convenient foods and beverages. We seek to produce financial rewards to investors as we provide opportunities for growth and enrichment to our employees, our business partners, and the communities in which we operate. And in everything we do, we strive for honesty, fairness, and integrity. Now, factors affecting the mission. The philosophy and values of the owners, the profitability and growth, the environment overall, the customers have an impact on the mission, the public image. The actual mission itself has to have a benefit to society. You have to produce, you have to provide something that society wants. There has to be a benefit to it. So let's look at the strategic process. Some people will say, what comes first, the vision or the mission? Normally, when you have a startup company, the individual who starts a company has the vision of that company and then creates the mission. In major organizations, you normally have, stabilized organizations, you have the mission, slightly changing, and then the vision moderately changing as it moves forward. But the organization's mission is then pushed to the functional area missions, which is then sliced into the functional areas such as marketing, operations, and financial. Thus, each one provides a different strategy, but it must be aligned to the overall strategy. Therefore, they provide action plans to achieve the overall mission. Functional areas have their own independent strategies that are aligned and have their own little missions, but they all must be aligned to the strategy and functional area of the whole organization. Strategies exploit opportunities and strength. They neutralize the threat and avoid the weaknesses. Sound familiar? That comes straight from SWOT. Strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats. Strategies for competitive advantage include differentiation, better or at least different than the other products. Cost leadership. Are you cheaper than the other? For example, Walmart. That's cost leadership. And response. Are you responsive to the client's needs? When you are using competition on differentiation, you are looking at uniqueness. And the uniqueness can go beyond both the physical characteristics and service attributes to encompass everything that impacts the customer's perception of value. For example, safe skin gloves. leading edge product. Why? Because SafeSkin identified the plastic was affecting the nurses and doctors that were wearing them, rashes that would develop the rashes. Well, the SafeSkin makes it non-allergic. Walt Disney Magic Kingdom is all about the experience and differentiation that you're when you go to the Magic Kingdoms himself. Hard Rock Cafe provides you with a dining experience. Engaging a customer with a product through imaginative use of the five senses so the customer experience a product is important. Such as theme parks use sight, sound, smell, and participation to promote this. Movie theaters use the same. Restaurants use music, smell, and open kitchens to show people how it's made, provide that extra level of experience. It provides the maximum value that is perceived by the customer. Does not imply low quality. For example, Southwest Airlines secondary airports no-frill service, efficient utilization of equipment. People want to use Southwest Airlines for price efficiency, low-cost leader. Walmart, small overhead, shrinkage, and distribution of cost. France Coral, no bags, no bright lights, no music, doors, or freezers, but it's low cost. That's what you're after. Flexibility in matching market change and design innovation and volume, such as Hewlett Packard's. All right, it's a way of life. Reliability, the German machine industry. And quickness in design, Johnson Electric or Pizza Hut. Issues in an operations strategy include resource view, value chain analysis, Porter's five forces model, and operating in a system with many external factors, which, let's put it in blunt terms, the universe is in constant change, so is business. So you have to adapt. As we mentioned before, SWOT analysis is done usually by market professionals, but you have to understand that it is the mission that drives the SWOT analysis. You're looking at external opportunities, internal strength, internal weaknesses, and external threats. That develops the strategy that you're going to be using. So how do you develop the strategy? You analyze the environment, you determine the corporate mission, you form the strategy, and then you implement that strategy by using key success factors. What are key success factors? Things that your company does better than the others. You're integrating operations management with other activities by building staff cohesion and building the staff of the organization. The operations manager's job is to implement an operations management strategy and provide competitive advantage and increase productivity. So when you're looking at key success factors, you're looking at the concept of marketing. What are they? Service, distribution, promotions, channels of distribution. When you're looking at finance, you're leveraging, which means you're borrowing, cost of capital, etc. So there are different key success factors out there. All right. For OM, operations management, they include product, quality, processes, location, layout, human resources, supply chain, inventory, schedules, and maintenance. When you're looking at global operations strategy, it includes international strategy, which includes imports, exports, licensing existing products, such as U.S. Steel and Harley-Davidson. Those are examples. Global strategy, which is standardized product, economies of scales, cross-culture learning, examples such as Texas Instrument, Caterpillar, or Otis Elevator. Multi-domestic strategy, using existing domestic model globally, franchising, joint ventures, subsidiaries such as Heinz, McDonald's, The Body Shop, or Hard Rock Cafe. And transnational strategy, which moves material, people, or ideas across national borders. Economies of scales is one of the functions of transnational strategies, and cross-cultural learning. For example, Coca-Cola and Nestle. Thank you. This has been an outstanding week for us, and if you have any questions, feel free. We're here to help you, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you.